and we are back. So I've done a few bits off camera. First up was, once this was dried, I spray painted it just so I can give a base for when I actually paint it. This came out a lot better than I thought. When it was wet yesterday, I was really concerned of how it was going to turn out, but not only did the gel dry in a sufficient way, I think the sand really added to the level and the depth of it. So the speeder will now be able to sit on this display base. What I am going to do, or what I'm waiting for, sorry, is some acrylic rods so that when I glue this to the base, I can have this sort of the feet wells off the base. I've also panel lined the troopers. You can see so where the armour clips and fits together, I've panel lined. So I did that. I've also glued the gun to the jet trooper's hand while I quickly painted the barrel of this gun and glued that to the bike. And here's our driver, who again has also been panel lined. So I think first off, I'm going to test how the colour looks on this paint. So I have enough more gassed bone, which is, as you can see, it's a dusty colour. Then I know what to do with, and I think this should be a sufficient colour for the sand. Give this a good shake. I'm not even going to water this down. I'm literally going to go straight from the pot. I think what I might do, just so I can get a load out, is pour some like that, and then I'm just going to get my brush, and I'm literally just going to brush over and get into, yeah, that's a good colour. So this is going to take a while, but this is definitely what I want. There we go. So I've painted the base. I think in total I've probably used the equivalent of maybe about half a pot of this more gassed bone. I need to paint the sides of this when everything else is dried. I haven't decided if I'm going to give this a second coat or not. What I actually wasn't intentional in any way at all, but what I quite like is how where the paint hasn't seeped in, you can see the sand coming through underneath, and it's giving some real layers to this display base. So depending how it dries, I may end up calling this good. And what I might do, again depending how it dries, is I might get some layer paint of a slightly different tone and just give almost a dry brush, just to give some highlighting to this piece. Next thing I want to do is I want to obviously paint these bits here to pick up the dirt and the dust. However, I had an idea that I want to try first. So I've got some of the sand I had in that big bag from Smith's, because I have no idea what I'm going to ever need all that sand for. I literally needed a tiny little cupful for a project I did a few weeks ago, and I've just been left with tons. So it's like, okay, so I'm going to get the more gas paint I've been using. And what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to mix the paint and the sand together and see how it forms, and maybe use this as some texturing onto the... Okay, so I've probably used closer to a pot than half a pot, but yes, that's fine. I'm going to get as much of this paint out as I possibly can. As much of that paint out as I can. There we go. Most of it's on the brush, which is fine, because we're going to then mix this all in together, create this textured paint, and wipe off the excess, and then I'm going to mix that in. This is looking quite nice, actually. Just make sure all of that paint's coated in this. All of the sand's coated in that paint, rather. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some, and I'm going to start by applying it on the bottom first. Let's give that there. I want it getting into and building up along the bottom of the treads. I'll take paint. Mostly want to coat the inner wells of the treads rather than the top parts, but I think I know what I'm going to use. Yeah. Toothpick may not be the best idea. I know what I'm going to use. So I got one of those crafting sticks I had, and I've snapped it down, and I'm going to use it to literally paste in some of this painted sand I've got. Get it trapped inside of that treadwell, because let's be honest, as this is speeding along, it's going to be picking up and it's going to be kicking out all of this sand and dirt and then I'm also going to use this just to almost dry brush along there. That's really, really good. This is coming out so much better than I thought. I'm so happy with how this is coming along so far. All of this has essentially been an experiment for me. Well, I've done miniatures and I've done some customization work over the last couple of years. I've never done anything like this, and customizations I've done has been sort of simple work. It's been painting a figure, and this has been a full-on job. I've certainly never created a base like I have here, and this is all coming out so good. I'm so happy with everything that's coming along. There we go. That's that on there though. Let's clean that off. That's fine. Let's clean that off. Those treads have really picked up the dirt as they should have. Just do the back ones a bit. Under here needs a lot of it. Get it right in there. Underneath. So underneath is going to be the dirtiest points. So let's get some nice thick dry brushing along here, really cake it up. And then I'm going to use some more. Make sure my brush is clean as I possibly can, and then very lightly do some over the rest of the grayed areas and the footwells, and then I'm going to do just the tiniest, gentlest brushes over these bluer parts, just to give the tonage of the dust collecting on the there. Look at that. That is fantastic. I am so happy with that. That's amazing. You compare that to what this originally looked like and what it looks like now. It's amazing what a little paint job and work can do. This has come out stunning. I am so happy with this. So you can see, oh, I should have done that. Oh, well. Let's see how it's now going to start looking. I can't glue it into place until one, everything's dry, and two, I get the acrylic rods I've ordered. But what I can do, which is the next step, is bringing in my troopers. I'm going to start with the biker. And you get this sand textured paste I've been painting with. Get some on my brush, and I'm going to literally dry brush it on. There we go. Get some up in the corners of its. Yeah. Turn it down quite a bit now, and just do some late, very finer work on the back. I don't want as much on the back because it's not going to collect there. It's going to be collecting on the front as he's driving as well, speeding along. Get my hand grubby. There we go. Look at that. That's yeah. That's looking really good. That's essentially all I wanted. I don't want him to be perfectly white or overly covered. I mean, what you're going to consider is the chest is going to be a little protected, but the rest of the arms and the legs certainly won't be. Trooper, he's going to have been riding on the back, so his legs are going to be on it. There's going to be bits on his arms and his helmet, but maybe not quite so much on the chest because it's been protected by the driver. So I'm going to do essentially what I did before, and I'm going to come in from the sides this time and essentially swipe over the sides. Just the inner bits, just to give that look, and then give some over the shoulders. So what I've done with the chest, I've sort of got some dry brushing here, but I've literally just wiped it away with my fingers, just so it's a little bit dirtier. But the primary factors are going to be the arms and the legs where it's open, it's being caught. Let's do some on the back. And the back isn't going to be quite as bad as the rest of the body, but it should have some dust and sand collecting there. Then we'll come back to this guy and let's just do under its arms and let's collect some more on the sides here, because the sides are going to be the worst. There, that's, there we go. There we go. That I'm happy with. That I'm definitely really happy with. So there we have the base and the speeder done. The speeder I think I'm calling done. Sort of. Yeah, let's look at what I do actually want to do, which I didn't think about, is taking some of this sand paint. There we go, getting some in, getting it all up in the vent there, because that's where it's going to really hit. Yeah, that's it, like that. That's that I'm calling done. The speeder's done. I need to wait for the base to dry so that I can give a final coat of the more gassed bone onto the sides, and then once the acrylic rods have arrived, I can then glue everything into place, which will include putting this onto the base and gluing the troopers onto the bike. Until then, which is probably going to be sometime next week, there's not a lot else I can do with this figure, so I'm essentially calling this done for now. Thank you for watching. I will be back with a final video to show this coming together. I hope you've enjoyed watching these. I've certainly enjoyed doing this. As I said, this has been a newer type project for me, and I've really enjoyed experimenting here, and I'm really happy with the results I've had as well, despite it all being, you know, made up as I went along. There we go. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, and until next time, may the force be with you.